Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. This probably the last show in regards to the whole issue of Black History Month. Yeah, Black History Month. We've had that for the last month or so. And I've had guests to come on to talk about what does Black History Month mean to the folks here in the city of Portland. And that's a very interesting piece, and I've identified and reached out to folks that I thought would be of benefit, and at the same time be an example, and talk to some of the other issues, major issues, that we have here within our city, to get back to the City of Roses, for that matter. And some of those guests, we had Bob Williams on. We talked about the trade unions, and this, that, and the other. We've had Fred Stewart on, and et cetera, and we talked about some of the real estate stuff and whatever, which is very important. But you notice what I'm saying. I made those 2 points because those subject matters that we discuss here on Voters Digest were relevant to solving some of the issues that we're having here now in Portland. I realize we just had Dr. King's Day. I mean, that was a beautiful peace aspect of it. But even then, I talked about issues as opposed to just, in all due respect, going to a prayer meeting. And I'm not knocking prayer meeting. I think it's a good idea, but we got some major issues here facing us here in the state of Oregon, in the city, or in the country for that matter. And so I thought it was very, very important that the shows was going to be focusing on one thing, the issues. And I'm sure that's what Dr. King was all about. That's what he was. That's what he represented. He was out there actively trying to get people to talk about the issues, but they focused on his color, his skin color. It's unfortunate, but that's where we were. So now we got a whole new day now. Folks are educated in many ways, and folks are in businesses and this, that, and the other. And so consequently, I think we're on the right path, and I know we're on the right path here at Open Signal and the Oregon Voters Digest. And as you can see with what I've got in my paraphernalia and whatever, I'm a military guy, proud military, big time. You see my covers here on the show here aspect of it, as far as the Black Veterans Association. I've got the VFW, Veterans of Foreign Wars, that kind of a deal, and the Marine Corps League. I've got the jacket on that I've been wearing of late, Marine Corps jacket. I'm a lifetime member of the Marine Corps League, lifetime member of the Veterans of Foreign Wars. I did my Vietnam piece on that aspect of it, and you just go the Marine Corps League. I'm a lifetime member anyway. But I want you to know that we are talking to issues. This is the last month, but we're going to be continually talking to issues. But this is Black History Month. And so my last guest and my last show on Black History Month will be a little part of March, if you will, but still it goes into March a little bit. But it'll be my last guest will be a businessman. I bring in a businessman who happens to be a person of color. He happens to be a person of color. He's a black man, but he's a businessman. He's been a businessman. He's been on this show a number of times, in business, you got to make a profit, if you will, to stay in business. And I've been in business for quite some time, and sometimes it weighs quite a bit when you go out and actively get involved in public issues. Normally, that's for the individuals that are elected to office. But unfortunately, the definition of electing to office is a whole different ball game than knowing whether or not they have the kind of resume to deal with the various issues aspect of it. But anyway, my guest today is a gentleman by the name of Fred Stewart. You've seen him on before. Ordinarily, I would not have invited Fred just to talk about issues that are relevant as far as the issues that we're major concerns with, like the policing aspect of it, the shootings, and all that other this, that, and the other. But the bottom line is that it's almost like the Chamber of Commerce. It's now the business association downtown aspect of it. But the fact of the matter is, he's a businessman, but he's still involved with his community. He's still involved with the issues within his community, and so today's show is going to be around these specific issues. We're going to be talking about the police department. It's a major issue. It's public. It's law enforcement. It's public safety. It's all those things we need, i.e., public safety. It's a very much. In the city council, we've got Renee Gonzalez, who happens to be the city commissioner of public safety. The mayor is still in control of the Portland police chief of police. He's still very much involved. And then we got the union president that's in control of the folks on the streets. And that's very confused to many of the folks aspect of it. And we still have the crimes. We have a crime. We got the DA that's still very much involved in this process. We got a whole bunch of this, that, and the other. So what we're going to take one segment of that, and we're going to be interviewing a businessman, Fred Stewart. And we're going to talk a little bit about those folks on the streets and the danger of that job and all the things that are happening and the kinds of things that they need, and if you will, to be able to enforce law enforcement and whatever. I mean, I can go on and on and on, but Fred is here. I want you to know that he's out there. He's talking to some of those guys that are on the streets and dealing with this stuff. They've got families and all. He's there with them. He's there with them basically. But he's also running a business. He's running a business. He just put on, again, this Black History Month, he just put together probably one of the first title companies here in these United States, just in Portland, Oregon. It's called Vanport. They're not just promoting his business. He's a businessman, but he's done this, and he's looking at hiring more people and this, that, and the other. Very interesting. But anyway, he's a businessman. I'm throwing back and forth with the aspect of it. But anyway, Fred is here with us today, and we're going to talk about police work. We're going to talk about the troop on this deal, and what he thinks about what's happening right now, and how do we get to that particular point where these guys can get back on the street and talk to their neighbors, and you hear this business about community policing. What does that mean? Very simple, from the standpoint that they understand the people within the community respects law enforcement, and they know that an individual knows them. And go back to the ways when it was the City of Roses and there was no problem, and a guy could sit down with a guy downtown or in the neighborhood and have a cup of coffee at a restaurant and with no problem, okay? But not being shot at, if you will, while he's on duties, or if not that, getting all the police force nowadays, getting in all their cars just to respond to a shooting. They can't go out there nowadays in one car and sit down and talk like a Harry Jackson did at one point in time. You know what I'm saying? So the name of the game, they got to go all in one time. That's a fact. And I want Fred to just run. So anyway, I've done my part. We got about very much of 45 minutes or so, and we're going to let him do talking. And I want you to listen and make sure you get this out to the folks and listen very carefully. Don't look at the individual, look at what he's saying, and vice versa. Okay? Fred, welcome aboard. How's it going?
Thank you, Bruce.
First off, how's business going so far?
Business is growing.
It's growing. Okay,
I mean, it's growing in a down cycle, which is the best time to grow.
Good. Well, I'm excited about the fact that you're doing Vanport. I think that's a good idea. It's a one of a kind. I'm familiar with naturally the title company because I was in the real estate aspect of it myself. But the fact of the matter is that it's a very unique piece. It's another field. So that's another piece. You can check him out on some of the historical pieces I just did. When we interviewed about Vanport, we interviewed this whole thing on Black History Month. But right now, Fred he's the businessman sitting in this chair, and we're gonna be talking about police. So focus on what he's saying and not just him personally. Talk to me, Fred. And by the way, he's got a cover. He's former Marine too, by the way. You see, he's got his cover on. He has to. Talk to me, Fred.
No, what do you want to know?
Well, I want to know. Let's talk about the whole issue of. The structure of how it's made today, the police aspect of it. You've got the mayor and you've got the chief of police that sits in the office of the mayor with the mayor, and he pretty well
the chief of police serves at the pleasure of the mayor.
Of the mayor. Okay,
Correct.
Good. Now, as far as the troops are concerned, no, the other thing. Okay, as the mayor, then normally he has a liaison, if you will, that he appoints to communicate with the police union. Normally they used to have a person. In fact, who was that at one point in time? Well, at one point in time, what was the guy's name that had to deal with Loretta? What's his name? He was vying for that position. He was going to be an employee of the mayor, a liaison to the police department.
Oh, you mean Baruti?
Baruti.
Yeah.
What was that position?
Well, that was something that that's not in the charter.
Liaison, but it was a liaison.
Yeah,
person.
that was something. Yeah.
But now I guess the chief of police does that.
Well, the chief of police is supposed to do that.
Yeah.
And Charlie Hales, he's the mayor at the time. He wanted to have a special liaison between him and the chief, basically, or to work alongside the chief. So, you know, but that's up to the mayor to do. But that's not. There was nothing in the charter that.
But you know what's interesting about? I'm sure you're familiar with that piece. Remember Bud Clark?
Yeah.
And you notice how Bud was basically, hey, he was representing the public, if you will. And when he spoke to the police, it wasn't about just the chief. He spoke to the police department. Okay, you got me? Remember that time he had that meeting with this one chief?
Yeah, I talked to Bud Clark about that many times. Matter of fact, about 2 months before he died, he talked to me about it.
But he kept the chief in the chief position of the troops, if you will. He was talking to him that way because Bud naturally was a former Marine. You know, he was military aspect of it, and he knew the difference between just basically just having a chief of police under his strength. No, he kept the chief of police there with the troops.
Well, he followed the charter. I mean, but yeah, I mean,
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
The rest of them basically were just kind of like saying, well, they're just there, and you know, and I'm not trying to take anything.
Well, I don't think they do it just there. We've had
with Ted.
We've had in Portland some pretty.
Very
effective, but some chiefs that were pretty. I mean, they definitely represented the police department.
Right. And you know, and I think Vera kind of felt she wasn't a Marine, and she wasn't a military.
She could have been Marine,
but she was tough. She was tough.
She was a very tough woman.
She's a tough woman, and she pretty well controlled those troops to a certain degree. And she had a lot of fights with those union folks, and when they came up with contracts. I remember that big time. But okay, let's talk about that now. So now we got the union. We got the unions, and when the union got involved in the deal, the president of the union, and then they negotiated the contracts, and you hear about all this stuff about the contract, and a lot of times the people who are basically trying to talk to the contract are normally the mayor and some of those folks that are elected, but they don't have no background. They haven't been any police officers. So consequently, and I got that from at one point in time the union chief. I'm thinking about he's passed away. He was very effective. In fact, most of those perks for the police department today was as a result of him. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but see those perks. I'm glad that these cops have the perks, and the degree they deserve them. But they had them before. They just had them without it being, you know, well understood that they were supposed to have them. I mean, that's a very, very tough job. And you know, when you mention Harry Jackson being by himself in a car, when Harry Jackson was a Portland police officer, you know, 25 years ago, there was over 300 more cops on our streets than there are today.
Yeah.
We don't have that many police officers. We had more police officers in 1970 patrolling our streets. And you got to remember, back then on the east side, the city limits ended at about 82nd, not 181st.
Right.
So we had 100 blocks more to patrol. That's a lot of city, and then that's not counting what we've annexed since you know on the west side. So no, we don't have enough police officers to keep us safe. I'm very happy that, you know, crime, at least violent crime, seems to have dropped this year. I hope it continues, but let's see what happens this summer.
And let's not get away from Harry. You brought Harry's name up. Let's talk about that situation. Harry was not just a guy just off the street or whatever. He happens to be a black person. He was very familiar with the area in Portland. He was a former cop. He was a former cop.
Yeah, but that's what made him effective. I mean, he patrolled mostly Northeast Portland. 40 years ago, he was over in Northeast Portland. In an area, he went to Jefferson High School. He grew up in Northeast Portland.
Yeah.
And
highway patrolman.
I didn't know about that until years later. But I mean, Harry knew where our mothers lived and our fathers lived. And I mean, his family. I mean, his wife's family was on Cleveland Street, and I think he was in Cleveland. I think his family was on Cleveland Street too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Harry Jackson's father and mother are still around.
Former military, big time.
Yeah, he was Air Force.
Yep, he was Air Force.
He was Air Force.
But my point is that he wasn't just the guy that just joined, if you will.
Yeah, he had a lot of community. He had a lot of community connections, which made it
at that time.
Which
made it. It's a different ballgame.
Well, today we don't have enough cops, let alone cops. And even though we do have a lot of cops who grew up here in Portland, thank God, still not as many as we used to. I bet the percentage of cops that are patrolling our streets today that graduated from a high school, let alone attending any school here in Portland, is lower than it was 25 years ago. So there is a community connection that's not quite there. You know, a lot of the cops, back in the 90s still. I mean, these guys, not all of them, of course, but at least they grew up in Oregon.
Right,
They didn't graduate.
right.
So that, no matter where they were, they kept bouncing into the community connections. Right. We don't have that as much anymore.
And then the majority of the clientele of the police department, they were from here.
Yeah, the majority. I mean,
the majority.
Now,
not a whole different ballgame today.
Well, yeah, I mean, a huge percentage, a larger percentage of people here in Portland have moved here over the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So there's fewer connections, and those connections do matter.
Yeah.
But we don't have enough police officers to keep the whole city safe.
Right.
And especially for a long period of time, we just don't.
And think about another point which brings about, and I'm trying to, but we don't gradually get to this other point. But now, for instance, the mayor is his second term aspect of it. Got me? He was an elected official. He got elected like anyone else.
Yeah.
But when you think about his background, he might have been born here, but he wasn't raised here. He wasn't raised.
He went to Lincoln High School.
But my point is, when I say raised here, I'm sorry, actively gotten involved with like a Harry Jackson or whatever. He didn't have the same format.
I think Ted Wheeler, I mean, he's a Portland boy.
Yeah.
I mean, he graduated from Lincoln High School.
Yeah, but the issues that we're talking about today about gangs and things of that nature, that's not his background. Okay?
Well, yeah,
he couldn't get in a car. He couldn't get in a car and ride around talking to folks.
Was Ted Wheeler streetwise when he became mayor? Probably not. Probably one of the least of the. Well, him. I don't know who would be the least streetwise of the mayors of the last 50 years. It's either him or Charlie Hales. One of the two would be the least streetwise. But he's a smart man. I think he's done the best
but he had no leadership
that he can.
He wasn't walking the streets up in Southeast Portland. He was born in Southeast, born and raised in Southeast.
Yeah, but that means not a lot of people in politics in Oregon,
right?
Come from a background or been involved in their lives where they've had to deal with a lot of, let's say, stress of the economic nature. When I say economic, I mean saying they've not had their financial problems or whatever, but I mean they haven't had to hustle, and they don't know how to deal with hustlers.
That's right.
And that's why they're having a hard time dealing with the homeless and managing what they're doing with the homeless. Because the homeless are a threat to this community, but it's hard for. I mean, it's the reason why the homeless population should be able to take advantage of the people of Portland. I mean, really, the homeless population are the most effective hustlers we've had in Portland, probably in 50 years.
I know there are two former Marines that I know that wouldn't have that problem. We just happen to be sitting here.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? I mean, I can communicate. Let's put it away. You can communicate.
It's just, but I don't think the politics will let guys like you and me deal with it. I know that. We've got a lot of people who their compassions are ahead of their intellect. And I'm not saying they're stupid or anything. I'm just saying that they are easy marks for abuse collectively. I was having a great discussion with a couple of good friends. One of my good friends, I mean, pretty much, they want to give $1,000 a month to homeless people. And I was pointing out, I said, one of my good neighbors.
$1,000 a month. Make sure you tell them that.
Well, there's some idea being discussed in our legislature about basically giving homeless people $1,000 a month.
And the governor's on top of this too, by the way.
Yeah.
She's promoting it. Tina Kotex.
Well, she's promoting it because, she wants to get support. I mean, whether or not she'll ever sign the bill, we'll see if it ever gets in front of her. Yeah. But I tell everybody this. If you... Now, think about this. This is why I'm offended the most. We only got 95,000 black people in Oregon, like Mr. Posey said.
Yeah, right.
And we've got approximately about that many homeless people in the state.
Right.
About 95,000.
Right.
So if we can give, and most of that 95,000, like 99% of it, is white or looks like it's white.
Right.
99%. There's not many homeless black people because there's not many black people. So if they can give homeless people, if I can get some white person in politics to say, hey, it makes sense. Let's give homeless white people $1,000, $12,000
for 2 years. Yes, right.
Why haven't they done that for black folks? You know, I mean, that white person, you know what David Duke keeps saying? Oregon is as racist as he is. He says they are. They just aren't brave enough to admit it, but they listen to me. And I know wherever David Duke is one of the top leaders of the white supremacy movement.
Right.
And he loves talking about how Oregon liberals are just like him.
Yeah.
They just won't admit it. And I know wherever that man's at. He's laughing his ass off. He goes, they got a lesbian white governor wanting to give reparations to white homeless people. God bless her. You know what I mean? He's got to be just like, that is awesome. You know, that is awesome, because he's against giving $1,000 a month to black people.
Right.
And obviously, so are the white people that we've sent to the legislature.
Yes.
Because why haven't they done it?
Yep.
If this is such a good idea for white homeless people, why isn't it a good idea for black folks? When you consider all the challenges that we've had to face, and that we all know that we've had to face and are still facing.
Yes.
You know, I just don't get it. I mean, I don't know. I may never vote for another white politician again now. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I may
really.
This may be the end of me voting.
Yes.
I mean, honestly, I don't know why a black person should vote. I don't know why a black person should vote.
That's right.
Because, you know, when everybody was against Trump 2 years ago, right? You know how many people I had on my Facebook talking about white people talking about reparations and blah, 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 blah. Ain't heard nothing about that.
Right.
But now I got white people in the legislature talking about giving reparations to homeless people.
Yes.
Now, I'm already upset that we spent over $1 billion on the local tri-county population of homeless people, which only comes down to about 40 or 50,000 people.
Yeah.
We spent $1 billion on them. Yet we can't afford reparations. And I'm not even a big proponent of reparations for black people. That's not like my big issue. But I'm like, God, if you can give all a small community of white people $1 billion, why can't you do that to black folks?
Yeah.
You know, why can't you? Why you tell me you can't afford it, but you and I'm like I said, I'm not even a guy who's a big reparations guy.
Right.
You know, I'm not even sure if reparations will get us where we want, where we want to go.
Right.
But I'm like, God, I mean, what's more likely to benefit the state of Oregon? Giving 95,000 black people $1,000 a month, or 95,000 homeless white people $1,000 a month? Which one's gonna, one's gonna benefit us more? You know, I mean, I don't know.
You know, the point you made, I'm thinking about the time when I was in the housing business. The whole idea of trying to get black people to get out of a renting situation into a home ownership. And you were falling in the same arena as me.
Yeah.
What if they had given that particular piece at that time for Northeast Portland, when the houses were 15, 20,000, 30, you know what I'm saying?
Well, they tried. I mean, that's a whole other discussion.
No, that's a whole different.
I'm
just throwing it on the table.
I know, but what I'm trying to say, I want to be fair. I want to be fair. The city of Portland, because of people like Neil Goldschmidt and later on Bud Clark, they tried. We had some black people get in the way of that. You understand? They legitimate. And I don't talk about it. You don't talk about it? But I'm going to be fair about it.
I know.
Because these people, think about it. I mean, God, I can remember, was it 40 years ago? There was an organization, a nonprofit organization that had, 300 homes, 200, I think at least 200 homes.
I know what you're talking about.
And then they were to help black people have housing.
Exactly. Yeah.
And they failed.
Yeah.
And nobody talks about it. Yeah. But that was something that was started under Neil Goldschmidt in the 70s. It should have happened sooner. But then, you get some self-appointed black leaders involved, and next thing you know, it slows down. Yep. And then Bud Clark with the Nehemiah Project, brings in the Nehemiah and everything like that. That was great. And then those same people, get all this money and to help black people buy housing and have housing. And I think it was under 20 houses. After $100 million worth of investment in the 80s and 90s, $100 million.
Well, be fair. That was Gretchen Kafori.
Well, no, Gretchen.
That was during that time. Wait a
No,
minute.
hold it.
No. That housing piece that you're talking.
Bruce, I was around.
No, Chad Dutton was involved in that process.
Hold it. Me back up. I got a lot of respect for Chad and stuff like that, but you got to remember, I was around.
Right.
I know exactly what went down.
Doing it right. I was there.
Bruce, I don't want.
Well, we don't want to go in there.
We don't want to go there. But Gretchen wasn't the problem. Gretchen wasn't. If it wasn't for Gretchen, we wouldn't have PCRI. And if we didn't have PCRI, there'd be a lot fewer black people living in Portland than there are today.
Well, a lot. That's where those houses went.
Well, Dominion Capital.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and she's the only person that would have pulled the trigger to save 350 homes, 350 black people from being kicked out in the street. I was there.
Yeah, but
she pulled the trigger on that.
But Chad was trying to do a better deal on
No,
it.
he wasn't.
Yes, he was. I had him on the show.
Yeah, I know, but you got to remember, I was part of the deal. And even Chad, before he died.
You tried to do the deal too?
No, I didn't try to do the deal, but Chad and I had a long talk about it, and Chad admitted that, this was, what he was doing was wrong. So I'm not going to get to... it's bad for the show. You should do a show just on that. But Bruce, you're getting into areas.
Yeah, we did different.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Let's go. Keep going.
Yeah.
Let's start that because we're gonna talk about these police. We want to make sure we got to make sure we spend some time.
Well, let's go back to the police. The biggest issue with the Portland police,
talk to me,
is there's not enough of them.
Right.
And their morale is really low.
Right.
And they don't have a clear vision of what they're to accomplish. When the Portland Police was first created, back in, actually it goes back to late 90s, they had a mission of basically protecting downtown Portland, protecting the bars and stuff like that from all the vice and stuff.
Yeah.
And their vision was basically to deal with, basically I'll call them ruffians. They call them different things.
Yeah.
The guys off the ships, the guys that are coming into Portland from the lumber mills, and the guys coming into Portland from, they get to downtown.
The downtown piece, yeah.
And they would basically tear it up.
Oh yeah.
So the Portland police, they would literally hire guys based on their hand size, whether or not they were good with their fists, because they would go into these bars.
Inside, yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? And get in fights and duke it out with guys that were not well educated, very, physical, drunk, whatever. They had to protect the whorehouses. They had to keep the whorehouses and the opium dens in certain areas and away from other areas. And that was a fight. Portland police officers, for the first 30 years, they got in a lot of fights. If you read their old police reports, they're hilarious. They got in fight.
They got the museum.
And the first ones, the first few that got killed, I think they got killed in bar fights or breaking up bar fights. That's what they did. Well, I'm not saying that we should have cops that are fighting all the time. That's not my point. My point is they had a clear thing. This is what you do, cop. Put on your badge, put on your gun. You go and make sure the bad guys get in uniform, go down there, drag the bad guy out, take him to jail.
That's right.
You understand? Do whatever you have to. Do whatever you have to. Keep the peace.
Right.
Well, we need that level of clarity with the law enforcement today, and what is a modern day Portland police officer supposed to do. And we need that message coming directly from our city government, the people that we elect.
Right.
In this case, until I don't know what the new government's going to be like as far as who's in charge of the police or anything like that. But right now it's the mayor, and I hope whenever the new government comes in, who's ever in charge of the police has a clear vision of exactly what a Portland police officer is supposed to do and how to do it, and be prepared to defend that when it comes under challenge from the public. And the public should challenge. That's how you get... Law enforcement should evolve with the community. It's a reflection of the community, and it should evolve with the community. And I think that's one of the problems that not just the Portland police had, but a lot of law enforcement had around the country. It didn't evolve with the community. It didn't necessarily reflect the community, and it didn't evolve with it. And because of that, there is a disconnect. There's a wide disconnect between the public, especially public of people that are at a disadvantage or people of color, and law enforcement. And I don't think we're going to see it get fixed until that gap is closed. And there's only two ways to close it. One, you got to promote and get more people from the community to join, to be involved in law enforcement. Two, law enforcement needs a leader that is very well keeping an idea of what the community wants, you understand, and what the community needs. And understand that sometimes they got to do what the community needs even before the community knows they want it. But you got to be very close to it, and you got to pay close attention to it. And you can't let the union get in the way of it. If you know that we've had a problem with the union supporting bad cops. Not all cops are bad, but when a lot of times when bad cops are identified, you know, the people who come in and defend them have been the unions, which is what general unions do.
That's what they do.
You know, but the thing is got to be at the end of the day, there's got to be a commitment between the union and the people that we vote for, that what's in the best interest of the city comes before what's the best interest of an individual cop.
Right. And if that happened, then those individuals that are recruited would know that.
Exactly.
And you wouldn't have that kind of situation that we have today.
And I kind of think we're edging that way. I mean, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer here, but I think we're edging that way. I think we've had to go through a lot of hell to get there. And sometimes you have to, break things down before you can build them back up, And
well, let me throw this on that thing, to keep that point on, because I'm going to throw this on the table. Now, we're going to have, the way I look at it, we're going to have 12 mini areas. We got four districts. Wait a minute. We got four districts. You got 3 commissioners per area, you see?
Yeah,
so they're going to cut that up in a third each. Huh? I'm just throwing something out to you.
It's not going to be quite that way.
We don't know that. They're in the process of organizing now. Now imagine we're going to have 12 of them. They're going to have 3 per district, right? So how are they going to work together? Let's just take one district. How do you want them to work?
Well, I hope that the election process brings out better people. I mean, what I'm saying, first, it doesn't. What I'm getting to is what I'm more interested in is that good people are elected.
Okay.
We've had a problem the last 20 years. Not everybody we've elected since 2000 have been bad, but we've had some very, very bad people get elected.
Right.
Okay.
I agree.
I'm hoping with more choices. That we don't do that. That the people that we elect are good. Crap in, crap out type of thing. I want good people in so we get good results. And I think good people will figure this out and work it out.
But you got to get them elected.
Well, I think it'll be a little easier. I mean, look, I'll be honest. I'm not a big fan of us changing at this time our form of government, but since it is,
it's going to be done.
It's going to be done. It's already decided.
Yeah,
I have nothing to do right now but have faith that that it's going to work out in the long run. We're going to go through some growing pains, changing pains, evolving pains.
Well, the people are going to be more involved this time because people are angry.
Oh, I hope
they're angry. They don't like the idea of people pooting on their yards and this, that, and the other, camping all over the place and whatever. So they're going to hit those individuals.
Well, we still got to disconnect. We got a lot of wealthy. I'm going to say it this way: we got a lot of wealthy white people that can't live outside of their lives. They think they can. The problem doesn't affect them. And the choices, the decisions, the policies that they support, of the negative impact affects others, and they're okay with that. You know what I mean? They're okay. Yes, if it doesn't affect me, I think we should try it. If it's wrong, it affects somebody else.
That's right. That's right.
In general, it is bad to have homeless people living in your city. Not just for them, but I mean, it's like a good friend of mine whose son is a cop pointed out that you can be a registered sex offender and you can't be around schools. But you know what the solution to that? If you're a registered sex offender in Washington, move to Oregon, be homeless, and put up a tent. You can do that. You can do that, and you'll, as a sex offender, you'll be able to watch all the young kids that you want. You know what I'm talking about? And the Oregon guys, that's what they do. They're registered sex offender in Oregon, become homeless, move to Seattle. You can be around all the children that you want. You know what I mean? Because the resources we have to track these people is limited. And we've got housing advocates who don't even care that the person that they're giving a tent to or giving food to is a predatory sex offender. You know what I'm talking about? I ain't saying all the homeless people are, But when I ran for office in 2015, I went on some ride-alongs, both with the city of Portland, Portland Police. And I went on with some people from the county, social workers. And this is something they told me back in 2015 when I was getting ready to run for city council in 2016. They said that most of the guys at the camps that we were going to were criminals, okay? Because of their lifestyle.
Right.
They were druggies or whatever. They got to steal or whatever. But also, there was a high percentage of them were registered sex offenders. Maybe not in Oregon, but from wherever they're from, Tennessee, Texas, whatever. So anyway, one night I'm at Yours Bar with my good friend of mine, who's a former police officer. We're having some drinks, and when we got done, we come outside, and this guy asked us if we could spare some change. So this cop friend of mine, we took a picture of this guy. This cop friend of mine, a former cop, he's retired, he said to the guy, "I'll give you $10, but you got to answer some questions for me first." And the guy says, "Yeah, what?" He says, "First, where you're from?" And the guy says, "Florida." He goes, "Well, Florida, why are you here if you're homeless? Did you have a home in Florida?" He says, "Yeah, I had a home in Florida, but it was hard for me to live in Florida." And he goes, "Why?" He says, "Well, I'm a sex offender." He goes, "Well, why are you out here in the rain in Oregon?" And he said this straight, and he didn't know my friend was a retired cop. He said the cops in Portland don't bug you as much as the cops in Florida. He said the cops in Florida, they know I'm a sex offender, so when they see me hanging out on the street, they bother me. But the cops here don't. You hear something? He literally said that straight to our face. And my cop friend goes, "So what do you mean by they don't bother you?" He says, "Well, we put our tent. They have their tent not too far away from yours." He says, "When we put our tent up, when the cops come over, they're polite, and they don't really, bother us that much. And they don't, even if they do a background check on me, if they do a check on me and they see that I'm a registered sex offender in Florida, they don't hassle me.
Yes.
Whereas in Florida, I get hassled." He says, "And there's just more resources for me here than there are in Florida." And he said that to us straight up. And that's what the feedback
Did he give him the $10?
He gave him the $10.
Okay.
But that's the feedback. So over the years, I've talked to quite a few homeless people since then, and not all of them were sex offenders. Quite a few of them were. But a lot of them were criminals. They had long. One had just gotten out of prison for second-degree murder. He was a former, not gang member, but he says former, but he was in a biker gang, and he's homeless on these streets here, doing drugs. Second-degree murder. Granted, he's done his time. But this guy, how many people, our loved ones, our wives and our daughters, and go to work, and walk by this guy, You get what I mean? This is who they're walking by, and he's literally being lawless. And I asked him what he does to make money, and he says, "Well, I hustle. I get, I do catalytic converters. I, shoplift." And he was just straight up. He would just tell me what he did. He says, "I don't do any breaking and entering. I don't mess with people's stuff." But I said, "But you take catalytic converters." "Well, their insurance will cover it." And I said, "Well, no. The insurances usually don't cover it."
But what was he really saying? Was he saying that, "Hey, look, I got to have money. I got to eat.
He's got to have money.
I got to eat.
He's got to eat." But he's choosing to be homeless here because of the resources that we give him. But he would go someplace else and be homeless.
It'd be tough.
But do we really want to help people like that?
No.
When I think of homeless people I want to help, I'm talking about people who are from Portland, hard workers. They're having a hard time navigating the economics of today. Maybe they're retired. Maybe they're disabled. They need some support. They're our neighbors. They're here. They pay taxes here, or have in the past. Their families that pay taxes here. I'm not looking at helping somebody who, because of a YouTube video or something they read in the newspapers, sitting in Houston or sitting in Tennessee or wherever, saying, "I'm going to Oregon. I'm going west to Oregon because they feed you, they clothe you, they tolerate you." You know what I mean? I don't want to be a mark. And that's what happened a lot is we've allowed ourselves to become marks. We get abused. And the bad thing is the people who are from here, The people whose families and who invested in this town, invested in this state, the people who need help. They've worked hard. They've helped many others. Now they need help.
Yep.
They are not getting the help that they deserve.
And they're losing their homes.
And because we're helping so many people who aren't even from here. And we're helping the criminals. It's not like these are nice people moving here. I bet most of the homeless people that have moved here, right, they didn't move here to say, I'm going to build a life of contribution or productivity. They've moved here to take advantage of us here, to take advantage of what we offer, to do crimes and know that nothing's going to happen. I mean, it's the wrong people. You know, the person that's worked in this town for 30 or 40 years, maybe they got disabled, they can't work as much, they can't afford the rent as much, or the utilities. The people who've fallen on hard times that are our neighbors, right? Those are the people we're not serving as well, because we're wasting so much money on people who just come here to take advantage of us. You know, that's why this $1,000 a month to the homeless population is driving me nuts, because I'm like, they're not even talking about just making that to just people from Oregon. They're talking about anybody homeless.
Yep, that's right.
You know, you could be in Maine and hear that they're giving $1,000 a month to homeless people,
and they're advertising and they're advertising it nationally.
Oh my God, this is horrible.
Look, we got about another 15 minutes. I want to make sure we get back to the cop, to the guy who has to do the enforcement aspect of it. Now, what about the idea of how they're equipped today? You got my point?
Well, that's not the problem. The equipment is not the problem. It's morale and numbers. I mean, you need a police officer, a law person in law enforcement that has a clear understanding what their job is. I mean, they know they're cops, you know, but I'm talking about what they, you know, where they fit in the community. You're asking people to put their lives on the line, and I say this to a lot of my friends: would you want your child to put their life on the line for the city of Portland if they want to be a cop? Would you say, if they came to you and said, hey, Mom, Dad, I want to be a cop, and I want to be a cop in Portland, is this the type of city that is worth your child putting their life on the line? Because, you know, 1% to 2% of the people they deal with are the most lethal people in our country. They are killers.
They moved here.
And that's not counting the people who, I mean, the domestic violence stuff, which is, you know, you have a nice guy have a bad day. But I'm talking about the 1% to 2% of the people that they deal with that are flat out the rapists, robbers, murderers of our society. Okay?
Here in Portland.
Here in Portland. And this is the same way pretty much in all cities.
No, but not as much as.
Well, no, I mean, it's about the same nationwide, 1% to 2%. And that 1% to 2% are the ones that kill cops. They murder cops. That 1% to 2%. There's a small percentage of, you know, they show up to a domestic violence call, and a guy or woman has had a bad day, and they do something bad. That happens. Accidents happen.
That happens.
But I'm talking about the other guys, the other population. And I go, and my friend said, no, I would not want none of my kids. And this is somebody who graduated from Grant High School here in Portland. They're like third generation Grant High School grads, I think. I mean, they grew up here in Portland, and they do not feel comfortable with that thought of their child, who was raised here, putting their life on the line for their city. You know, there was a time when becoming a cop was considered an honorable thing. You know, I mean, parents and loved ones worried. They did, but they understood that their child was, their family member was doing something noble for their community. People don't look at it that way, and I think part of it is, you know, all the stuff that's happened over the last few years. But I think right now, people don't know where. People don't respect cops because they don't really feel comfortable where they're fitting in. Cops don't know where they fit in, really, other than trying to, you know, do the best they can to protect.
And protect themselves.
And protect themselves. And they have to. Because think about it. You can be a cop, get in a fight with a rapist, a pimp, drug dealer, bad guy. You can get in a fight with that guy and lose your job, lose your house, lose everything. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, we're talking about the lowest people in our society. You know what I'm talking about? You can get in a fight with that person as a cop and lose everything. You know? Oh my God! You know, the guy who goes around raping women is offended that the cop wasn't nice to him. You know what I mean? Oh, he's a citizen. Yeah, he's a citizen that's a threat to the community. I don't, why should the cop be polite to him?
What about the language that's used as a cop? Why do people get upset with that?
Well, a lot of people right now, I mean, the people who are upset with cops, right? I'm going to tell you, a lot of them that I see, they either are criminals or they have some sort of anti-community involvement background somehow. You know what I mean? And it's easy to get them upset about a cop.
But the language being used, though, by that individual.
Yeah.
Got my point?
I mean,
if you don't speak to them in that same dialect, you can't get their attention.
Well, I mean, the cops have to learn how to speak to people. They do.
But understand what I'm saying.
But
the
at the same respect, the public has to learn how to respect the authority of a police officer.
They need to be educated about so we're educating them about.
Well, the criminal element right now in Portland isn't concerned about cops.
Right.
They don't feel that they don't respect law enforcement. Right. They don't respect their laws.
How did we get to that point?
Oh gosh, a lot of ways we got to the point. That's a whole nother show. But I mean, part of it is we have not the law enforcement in Portland has not evolved with the population, and therefore the population doesn't respect law enforcement in general. Okay, and that leaves an open door for the negative parts of our community.
So how do we do that? We talk about the individual. Should that be the mayor's job, or should that be
a chief? Could be.
Should that be a chief with the troops?
Well, the mayor hires the chief. The mayor hires the chief to lead the police, but the mayor is the one that should set the guidelines where the police should be, what he is expecting out of law enforcement. It rolls downhill. The mayor's got to be very clear what he's expecting out of law enforcement, and it's got to be something that they can embrace. He's got to do it in their language.
But he can't do it with the chief under him. What about
he hires a chief to execute his vision.
He should have basically hired a person, like I was talking about Baruti. He was hiring a person to be. Yeah. I used Baruti, but he hired an independent person with some background. Might have been a retired cop or whatever.
Bruce, you know how you get things to change with law enforcement? Internally, you can't get
that's what I'm saying.
You can't get an outside person.
Yeah, but it's kind of like right now. That's the way it is.
I know, but you can't get an outside person and insert them into a chain of command. You got to do this internally. This is something you got to deal with at home. You can't.
Well, what about Mike Reese? Now, Mike was chief of police.
Yeah.
He was chief of police in Portland, and he was a sheriff. In fact, he was the elected sheriff. Yeah. Now that would be a heck of a person if he's sitting in that slot.
If he's not in the chain of command. He would be more effective than other people because of his background in law enforcement and his history.
That's what I'm coming
but
from.
Still, he could be a distraction if he's not part of the chain of command. You got to remember, people hate to admit
the chain
it.
Of command is
the police, all police departments are a version of a military unit.
Right, it's paramilitary.
It's a paramilitary unit.
That's right.
In the chain of command is what keeps it disciplined, and you can't insert an outsider into the chain of command unless they're part of it.
Mike is not he's got background.
Yeah.
He's got background.
Yeah.
He's not just an outsider. But he would be a better person than the actual chief that's supposed to be on the ground with his troops.
If the chief doesn't answer to him, right? The rank and file doesn't have to answer to him. He's not part of the.
Wait a minute. Now,
are you saying that Mike should run for mayor?
No.
Wait a
minute. First off, who's the employer when you think about that whole piece? Who's
the city of Portland?
The city of Portland.
Yeah.
And the employer basically hires the mayor.
Yeah, but you're still missing my point. The liaison isn't a boss.
The what?
The liaison isn't a boss.
What do you mean he's not a boss?
He's not.
He represents us, the people.
No. He represents the mayor.
Who elects the mayor?
We do.
Okay, so who is the employer?
It's not like the liaison. Even when Baruti was there, it's not like the liaison could give the chief of police an order unless it came directly from the mayor.
Bud Clark did.
Bud Clark didn't have a liaison. But Bud Clark did give orders to his chief. Yeah, he's part of the chain of command.
No. I think when I saw that situation with Bud was basically saying, you go and blah, blah, blah. This is what you do. And he said no.
Bud told me that story many times. And you're right. But Bud did not have somebody between him and the mayor. It was him Not mayor, him and the chief of police. It was him and the chief of police.
Wait a minute.
In that case, Davis thought...
Who was representing the...
Hold it. Davis thought he could tell Bud Clark how the police department was gonna run. And he learned, because he got fired, that wasn't how it worked.
About the bees too. Go on.
No, I mean, but I'm just saying, Davis thought he could tell the mayor how the police department was going to run.
So what do you mean then? So you
the chain of command. The chain of command is the buck stops at the mayor. The chief of police does what the mayor tells him to do.
Okay.
The chief of police sets the boundaries. Okay, and if the chief of police can't live within those boundaries, or support the mayor in those boundaries, or execute what the mayor wants to see accomplished, then the mayor can always hire somebody else that will.
Okay. So we get. I'm glad you brought to that particular point.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm saying get rid of the union and put the chief there.
Well, I mean, it'd be great if we could get rid of the union, but unfortunately, legally, there's no way to do that.
What do you mean?
We got it's the public employees, and they've got the right to unionize.
But still saying, who is the employers?
I understand, but that doesn't matter. That you can.
You
can still have it. We can't, as far as I know, unless there's some laws. We the people in the United States right now can't prevent people from unionizing. If they want to unionize, they can.
And what is the definition of union? Bob explained. Did you listen to it?
Yeah, I heard it. I can't do it as well as him, but I do know that the Portland police, the people of the rank and file Portland police, have a right.
He mentioned one thing: politics has got us in this situation.
Well, yeah, but there's,
he respects the union.
Yeah.
But he also says that the thing that's happening right now is not the union, it's the politics.
Well, yeah, but the politics and the union are kind of intertwined in this area. I mean, we need a mayor in the future that can manage the union instead of the way we've had it.
They can't.
Well, they can't. They have in the past, and if we get the right ones in the future, they will again. We have in the past.
So what should we tell the mayor? Let's tell the mayor now. The wheel is trying to do the job.
Have a clear vision what the police are supposed to accomplish. It has to be something that everybody understands.
Do you think he's articulated that? Does he understand?
I don't think so yet. I think he's tried, but I don't think he's accomplished
now
it
with
yet.
This new organizational piece, he's going to have community. The real people are going to be involved. But he's going to have 3 commissioners per district.
Yeah, and
they're going to have to divide their district.
And maybe they will be able to come up with a better vision.
They're going to be elected from those respective districts, right?
In
fact, I think Rene Gonzalez is probably one of the first ones, because look at Rene. Rene basically represents a certain segment, i.e. well-to-do, in Southeast Portland.
Yeah.
Okay? And see, he could be a city commissioner, if you will.
Well, he is a city commissioner.
No, he is, but I'm just saying, in this new deal, he still has to run for that piece.
Correct.
He can be one of those commissioners.
He could be.
And he should be doing exactly what he's doing now for those folks in that area.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't paid that close attention since he came on in January. But I hope he does. I mean,
because he's thrown some things on the table, which is very interesting, right?
I hope he does.
He's thrown the deal about when he came out with the tents. Remember the tents?
Yeah.
He came out with the tents and said, no, we're not going to give them tents.
No, we shouldn't give them tents.
Okay, now he made that statement.
Yeah.
Right? He got hit for that, but he made the statement.
Hit by who?
He also
hit by a reporter, a journalist.
He also hit.
Now that's what I want to hear about.
He also made a piece.
I want to hear about a city commissioner slapping upside the head a couple of journalists. These journalists we got in this town.
Yeah, but still,
oh my God.
But that's a whole different ballgame.
There's no such thing as a hit. I don't even listen to what journalists say.
I know.
I mean,
I tried.
We are in this mess.
I tried educating.
We are part of the reason why we're in this mess is our journalists.
Well, but
and the bulls. I'm almost said it. No.
But it's still communication, right?
It's still communication.
Freedom of speech.
All they need to do is report the facts and just leave the opinions out of it. I'm so tired of these guys.
That's a whole different ballgame. Because I read that last time around. It was
back in 1956, we had some journalists that were getting on people's nerves, and all of a sudden, one of them went fishing and never came back. It's amazing how good journalism got after that, supposedly. You know what I mean? It's just
like you said. That's another piece. We need to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean,
that's another. Maybe we might get. In fact, maybe we might be able to get Ken Body to sit here. He's been there a long time.
Well, he's a TV journalist. Those guys are different.
Yeah, but guess what? There's some issues there we can be. Maybe in fact we might invite him.
Good.
We can invite him to come on over.
You should. You should invite interview him.
I've tried, but he won't. But by the KOIN made sure
he may not be able to. I mean, he in his contract, he may not be able to, because I've never seen any of those guys on anybody's cable access. You know, I haven't even seen him on podcasts. So, I mean,
they gave him a shot as a result of Black History Month. You got my point?
No, that's good.
That's where he's at. See, but my point is that he should be an anchor. The man should have been an anchor, big time. He's got the background. He's got the experience. He's been around. My point?
Like I told you, David Duke has said this for years. That Oregon, they're just like him. You know what I mean? And years ago, years and years ago,
David Duke again?
He used to be head of the Klan, head of the National Association of Advancement of White. I mean, he's a white supremacist.
Yeah, but this he's a
and he has made jokes about Oregon for years.
But this is America, you know.
And I think the first time I heard him go off about Oregon was back in '99.
Yeah.
And he said, "I love Oregon." That's when he told everybody. Him and Tom Esker said Portland was going to be the new capital of the white supremacy or something like that.
Let me ask you that question. We were at the end of the show anyway, but this is Black History Month. And maybe we need to start trying to figure out what can we do to talk to these folks. What's your definition of black history? I mean, of a white supremacist.
White supremacists are people who just feel that the society is a white society. And
what percentage of the country you think?
The rights.
What percentage of the people here in Portland you think
are white supremacists?
Yeah,
20%.
20%?
20%.
Okay.
I think 20% are flat out.
Okay.
I mean, everybody, including some black people, have some white supremacy tendencies. It's part of our culture. It's the things that we've learned, things we've learned from the people that we trusted the most. You know, black and white. But there's about 20% that are just hardcore. I mean,
hardcore whites.
They dream it. They dream it. I mean, they about 20%. About one out of five.
And they're part. What about Portland?
Portland, as I'm saying, about 20%.
20%.
About 20% straight up.
Okay.
And some of them are liberal, some of them are conservative. Some of them, and that's why.
And they're part of the structure.
I mean, and we're seeing it with this $1,000 to homeless people.
Right.
I mean, how many times have people said we can't afford reparations for black people?
Right.
We can't afford it.
Right.
Those and think about it.
Right.
We've got white people who've been in the legislature for God knows how long. They could have given $1,000 a month to black people years ago.
Right.
That wasn't a good idea. But you know what? We can give $1,000 a month to mostly white people. And mostly white people that aren't from Portland. Mostly white people who never pay taxes in Portland. Yes! Let's do that. I'm telling you, I don't know for sure, but I bet money.
Well, who's going to get on that
David
list?
Duke is laughing his ass off.
Right.
No, those white people up there, they're not racist. They're not racist at all, but they're not giving those darn Negroes any reparations. They're giving white people reparations. You know? Oh my God, this is bad. I mean, this is so bad. Can't make this stuff up. One day, somebody's going to do a Netflix movie about Oregon about this stuff, and it's going to be a hit.
Well, we do it.
It's going to be as big as Game of Thrones.
We do it every Sunday on Oregon Voters Digest.
You do?
Yeah, we do it every Sunday.
Oh, this is hilarious.
Well, we're gonna try to get this show out there big time. This is my last of the piece, and please text people out.
Yeah.
Give them the link of this particular show. It's a very interesting one, educational type, even to the white supremacists.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if they can transition, you know, I mean, it's just a matter of just spending a little bit more time at the table.
Yeah. As of a year ago, David Duke and said that he still has a lot of hope that Oregon is basically going to give up the ghost and just accept white supremacy.
Yeah, right.
He still has hope for it.
Right.
He still has hope for it. I don't. I think Oregon is not going to go that way, but time will tell. We'll see. I mean, when you see stuff like this come up, I mean, and before reparations for black people, are you kidding me? I mean, this just cracks me up. Black people in Oregon couldn't even own corporations until 1955. Couldn't even own corporations in Oregon. You know what I mean?
All right.
We all know the history.
This is it. Fred, thank you very, very much. And folks, I hope you enjoyed our Black History Month reporting aspect of it. And naturally, this issue, part of it, will come off next time around. But at the same time, we will continue, if you will, as far as I'm concerned. We need to quote reparation as far as the mines on an ongoing basis.
That's the only problem is.
Yeah.
It makes a guy like me even think about reparations, and I'm not even sold on it. I'm not.
Hey, good. See you next week. Have a good one.